This episode of But Make It Books was filmed in front of a live bookshop audience.
We're very blessed and excited to have our second guest live in person here with y'all today.
And we're ready to kick it off. So let's hit our bio first.
Yeah, let's do that.
So we can actually introduce her the way that she deserves because she is an accomplished woman.
Let's talk about
and
it.
what we doing is Black History Month, but applauding Black women all day long.
I mean, clearly applaud all the Black women in here right now. Like, this is wild. I love this. All this melanin. Yes, love it. So, our author for today is a former public relations manager, spent several years working with well-known authors such as J.K. Rowling, B.B. Moore Campbell, Amy Tan, and Bishop T.D. Jakes before becoming an author herself. She is a New York Times best-selling author of 5 novels and the recipient of the National Book Club Award, the Phyllis Wheatley Award, and the USA Best Book Award for Best Fiction. Her recent novel, House of Eve, was an instant New York Times bestseller and is selected by Reese Witherspoon's book club as of the February 2023 pick. Not to mention, she also just got an NAACP Image Award nomination for this as well. Respect on her name is what we're talking about. Her previous novel, Yellow Wife, was named by Oprah Magazine as 27 of the 2021 most anticipated winter historical fiction books. Yellow Wife was also a 2021 Goodreads Choice Award finalist for historical fiction, 22 Yerson Wright Foundation Legacy finalists, and BCA LA Literary Honoree, Library of Virginia's Literary People's Choice Award winner, and a Barnes & Noble Book Club pick in paperback.
We standing on business all 2024.
I'm just saying. She teaches for the MFA program at Drexel University and is a writing mentor for Story Summit, originally from Philadelphia. She currently lives in my hometown, Richmond, Virginia, with her husband and 3 children. Everybody, please give the loudest, warmest welcome you can to Sadeqa Johnson.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
We're so blessed to have you.
Truly. So maybe y'all know, if not, you'll know today how we kick things off on our podcast. We typically kick things off with like a check-in. So like kind of how you are, how you doing, you know, what's the present moment feeling like. I don't want to go first. Niccara, you should go first.
Okay, that's fair. So we are pretty much each other's resident Elmo. How you doing? I don't know if everybody saw that on Twitter. And everybody's like, Elmo, not that freaking great, Elmo. I'm actually doing really well. I'm super blessed to be in your presence again. We talked about my little manifestation in Richmond when I was there for the hardcover release of House of Eve. But I'm doing really well. I mean, you know, the election is kicking my butt. You know, my full-time job's in politics, and I cry often because that's my daily life. But we're going to make it through. That's all I got. Yeah. So you going to not go first, or you going to make Sadeqa go first?
I'll go. No, okay. I'll go. You know, we'll make a warm welcome. I am choosing to be present in my present happiness, having Sadeqa here with us. I've been running around a little bit today, suddenly dealing with another project. Thankfully, I'm working on, you know, the things. I'm a theater person. I've got a festival coming up in April. I'm developing it. There's a lot to do. So I'm like, look, I have a lot to do right now, and this is joyous. So I'm just going to be here for that. So I'm choosing to just soak up all the good feelings that I'm feeling right now, because I can't believe this person's like right here just looking at me like, look at her. Like, yeah, go on. Yeah, so how are you, Sadeqa?
I am amazing. I am amazingly well. This is the first day of the paperback, and the fact that you guys came out on a Tuesday, I can't tell you how warm and fuzzy I feel right now. I appreciate each and every one of you in the room, and I was sharing that my last event in Baltimore was a few years ago, but it was for my second novel, Second House from the Corner, and it was at the library, and 2 people showed up. Now, I was told that in Baltimore, when it rains, people like to stay in. But still, there was a little bit of fear coming in here today. I was like, well, if I get 4 people, that's better than what I got the last time. Okay. So I am amazingly well, and I'm so grateful to see all of your beautiful faces. So thank you.
So excited. Thank you so much.
Okay, all right.
So another thing on our podcast that we like to do in Baltimore, for all my Baltimore natives, how many people here are actually from Baltimore?
Woo-hoo!
My people. So what we like to call, instead of an icebreaker, we call it a snowball. So our question is, with the Grammys and everything that happened this past Sunday, not going off of their choices, who was the album of the year, because we're not going to talk about that. What was your album of the year?
Oh, Renaissance. I saw the movie. I was already a B fan, but after I went to see the movie, I was like, that's my sister. I can relate. In the movie, she said, why do I have to keep repeating myself all the time? Right? I was like, why do I have to keep repeating myself? So for sure.
B?
This is the thing. I'm always hard about these kind of questions because it's like my life is like almost like a compilation album. It's like I'd be listening to making the playlist for today. So going to the 50s was exciting. Like I was listening to Dinah and a little bit of Ella and like a lot of people who I just love because my grandparents loved them. So I feel like I always with this award stuff as an entertainment whatever person, I always am watching these things and I'm excited about them, but I'm always feeling like none of this is right. None of this is accurate. None of this is it. But I will shout out Victoria Monet and Jaguar too, because she deserves everything that she's gotten so far, and she didn't. She's just. I love her album. I loved it. Listen.
I have to listen to it. I feel like I'm behind. I'm behind on that.
Oh yeah, no, you're not. No, because she talks also so much about how this is why if she write a book, we're gonna get her on this pod, I swear, because she talks about how it's been 15 years getting to this point where she is, and I feel like time, development, growth, a lot of healing comes with that. A lot of trial, tribulation, testing. Wrong ways or whatever come with that. So it's I think that's a testament to whenever it happens, so go for it.
Definitely.
For me, I would have to go to Renaissance's Underwater version, which is Janelle Monáe's Age of Pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
So that album is mine. I'm I love everything about them. They are amazing. They slay.
Yeah, I love her too.
Janelle Monáe is that girl.
She is.
And that album has got me through a lot of things, like Float and then Phenomenal. I'm just a true work of art. How you feel? Phenomenal. I'm yes. Clearly that was better than Midnight's. And I do like Taylor Swift as a writer, but a vocalist, that's something that's a stretch. But it is what it is. The Grammys all messed up. It's fine. We know they on their stuff.
Well, you guys just educated me, because I'm gonna go home and listen to both albums.
Yes.
So I can be a part of the conversation next time.
Yes.
Absolutely. Please do. I love it.
So who wants to kick it off with the first question? You or me, B?
I know I'm passing it over to you, but let's celebrate Black women. You should go ahead and go first.
Okay. That's fine.
Let's keep it there.
So, this book. It's so much that has touched me in that book. I finished it in 2 days, much to the carnage of my fiance in the back, because I was definitely staying up and the light was definitely on in our bedroom. So sorry, babe. But what struck me the most is, you touched on something in Eleanor's story, is her struggle with being able to carry to term, and how she correlates that to her womanhood, and how even her mother-in-law correlated that to her womanhood. They joined together in the end. But why do you think that story is so important to tell, especially where Black our entire existence is at risk, especially our wombs? So I want to have you touch on that.
Yeah. It's a sensitive topic for sure. And I think as a writer in general, my job, or what I feel my job is to tell your story, right? So I want people to see themselves in my book. I want you to say, oh my gosh, that was me. That's how I was feeling. Now I'm not alone, right? So that was part of it. The other part is that I think that is a burden that we've had to carry as women, as all women. It's, our job. I'm reading a book now by Etaf Rum called A Woman Is No Man. And, the whole part of the book, the existence of the woman is to get married, have children, wait on their husbands, that's it, right? And I think that that's been the trajectory of womanhood throughout history. But I don't think anyone had ever really talked about what it's like for women who can't have children, or, you know, what that feels like. And so that was important to me. And I had a friend when I was coming up, we were having children, and she had a little bit of struggle. And I remember, you know, wanting to do something, but there's nothing you can do but be supportive, you know. So I just felt it was important to tell that side of motherhood. One of the things I think about House of Eve is that it is motherhood on so many different levels, right? It's a love letter to motherhood. There are good mothers, there are bad mothers. There's, you know, Eleanor who wants to be a mother. And so I wanted it to be sort of a full circle feeling about motherhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's I'll jump in on that motherhood moment, because it is interesting being. I also I did pretty much read it in 2 days as well. It was because once the car brought me the signed copy back, I was like over the moon already. But I was saving it. I was like, I need to save it. I'm gonna wait. I don't know why I'm waiting. I don't know why I'm saving it, but I'm going to. And then I read it at sort of the turn into 2024, where I'm like really looking into my relationships and like my upbringing a lot more, especially since starting this podcast. I'm just getting even deeper into it now, so it kind of feels like bring my mic out a little bit. No, it's cool. We're going to pause for the cause for a second. No, it's cool. We're going to, and so I'm like kind of just doing my own processing and things like that. And I'm just thinking about like, you know, how I, as a guy, raised by a single mother, but like a very like determined, diligent woman, period. Like regardless of being a mother, like the woman I call mother is a determined, diligent person with a very clear vision. And so often, it's like, you know, the vision is often that their son, their man-child will grow up to be a man and then handle the house, be the head of the house, that protector, that provider, all that stuff, while simultaneously keeping it balanced that she's the matriarch of this household, this family, even in some places. So when I look at William and his mother and his battles with love and who he loves and what that brings and all that stuff, I'm just wondering, like, what can we like, or where do you feel like the healing begins maybe for us outside of William and his mother's story to maybe find those places of connection where we can really focus on less of like the tradition of classism and archies of any kind, and more so just on like the longevity and sustainability and happiness of that familial bond there. Loaded question, but like that's what it gave from me. It's like I love that. I love this book. I mean,
well, he got me, y'all. I mean, he got me. Like, I will say this about William and Eleanor. I thought that William and Eleanor's relationship was very similar to Shimmy and Mrs. Shapiro's relationship, right? And when I look at the mothers, because my oldest is a son, and then I have two daughters. And so I was also thinking about me and my relationship with my son. And while I'm not saying those two moms were right, but from a mother of a son, I could see where they were coming from. Because when I'm thinking about my only son, and how much mental energy I have put into making sure that he is right, that he is prepared for his queen, that he can provide, that he is intelligent, that he is articulate, that he has been exposed, she needs to show up right. You know what I mean?
Real.
So like from that perspective, I definitely understood it. Now, were they right? Were they wrong? That's definitely, you know, an opinion. Did they go too far? That's definitely an opinion, you know, based on how you feel. But I could understand them. And so I think it was easy for me to write them because I could understand them. Not that I would do the things that they did. I have practiced when my son brings someone home, whether I like them or not, I'm just like, hey. because that's not my place, right? So I don't want to be there, but I do understand that.
Yeah. But I think we recognize, in my relationship, I've recognized that actually is your place. So you won't have to figure something else out because this ain't where no, but it is like, I mean, that's ultimately like the balance of like, you know, trying to find that person who you love, like is like who you think about every day in the morning, but also you want your mother to like have that approval if she has that such an integral part in your life, which obviously she does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's an interesting place to kind of find that again, sustainable healing balance. Because like how do I have a 40-year marriage if y'all aren't good? You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. That's interesting.
And to be honest, Rose and Eleanor wouldn't even be able to keep or adopt the baby without them actually getting along, because they both had the whole family need to be on one team in order to get this across.
True.
And sometimes with family, I mean, we all have family, right? So even before I came here, I was thinking like, my family, it's sometimes so hard, like when it's your family, right? So, and that's what I also wanted to show. Like, we don't come as a family, you know, just happy-go-lucky. We have our moments. We have our we got to figure this out moment, or we have this is not working and we're dysfunctional moments. And I think that when you're writing fiction, you want to tell the whole story. I try not to leave anybody out. I want everybody to see themselves in the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's something that you do very well in your writing, which is you take your surroundings and you use them in a lot of your books. We've seen this with Yellow Wife. We've seen this with House of Eve. And I know that this book is loosely based on your grandmother. Can you like touch on that and like what initially sparked this to like kind of pay homage to her?
Yep. So how many people have read Yellow Wife? We have some people? Okay. So Yellow Wife was my first historical novel. And I mean, it took a lot out of me. I did not start off wanting to write historical fiction. I was very happy writing contemporary fiction, writing about me, things that I knew, right? And so when I was called to write that story, I knew that once it came out into the world that it was the best that I had to offer. I knew that that was my best book. And the question that kept plaguing me was, how do you better your best? And that's scary, right? That's really, really scary. So I was, you know, doing all kinds of things to try and get my muse going. But I remembered that my grandmother told me that she had been the black sheep of our family, that she got pregnant with my mom at age 14 and she had her at 15. She was unmarried. This was the early 1950s, North Philadelphia. I'm from Philadelphia. And you know, she said that there was a lot of shame because, again, that was what we did, right? There was a lot of shame for her to have a baby out of wedlock. And there was so much secrecy around the birth of my mother that my mother told me she didn't know my grandmother was her mother until she was in the 3rd grade. And I thought, my goodness, like, how is that possible, right? And so growing up, I could always feel this tension between them, and I could never put my finger on it. And it got me thinking about women and sexuality and what choices did my grandmother have as a poor black girl in North Philadelphia in the 1950s? Like, what choices did she have when she found herself in trouble? And that thought is what took me to the library, and I discovered these maternity homes for unwed mothers. So that was the beginning, that was the nucleus of where the story started.
No, you did that.
Yeah, for sure. Back to this aspect of shame, what is the foundation of that shame when it comes from, when it's a youth? Because I'm sitting here thinking about, as a body that is not able to give birth, I'm sitting here thinking about how it is incredibly possible from such a young age. And unbeknownst to so many, non-consensual to so many people at that young age. And then it's hard to like strike that balance between whether it is that sort of circumstance or not, to recognize that you are on this trajectory for decades from that moment on. So I'm just curious about like the genesis of shame being a part of that story, especially when it comes from your family. Like, how do we heal from that? Like, how do we abolish that part of like, hey, I'm not a bad person in any means. I am in this situation.
Yeah.
I'm human.
You know?
Shame has always been, I know at least watching my grandmother and my mother, shame has always been a big part of their story. It's always been a big part of their identity. And when you start from a place of shame, it's really hard to break out of it. And I really wanted to thread that through the story. You know, for those who read the book, you know, Ruby, the first scene, the first chapter opens up with a moment that is going to create shame for her. And again, I know that there are a lot of women who've had that experience and felt like, well, what did I do? You know, why was I wrong? Could I have done something different? And that sort of is the thread that gets the story going. And even in Ruby's relationship with her own mother, there's shame in her mother and her giving her up and her getting, you know, her in her relationship. There is just shame. And I think, again, I look at my writing as a balm, as a way to heal. So when you read it and you say, oh wow, you know, I'm not the only person who's had this feeling. It releases some of that shame to know, you know, and we need to talk more, right? Like, we need to talk more, and book clubs need to be started. And so when you're having those conversations in the book club, it gives you that opportunity to say, yeah, you know, this happened to me, and this released some of those feelings that I was having, and now I can move forward.
And like, without punitive, because I assume that sometimes it's like a self-implied punitive action to like, oh, the mother may see her daughter fall into a similar circumstances that maybe she came from. And so it's like, I'll punish the daughter, but I also have to go punish myself. And it's like all of those cycles have to be just removed for whatever reason. You know, it's like, yeah.
Healing generational trauma is very hard, especially if you're not brave enough to go back in your past in order to clear your future.
Yeah.
It's rough. I best believe I'm going to pay a lot of money to my therapist for it. So there's a lot of things that we talk about and highlight in But Make It Books, and healing, self-discovery, all those things. We did a lot of things in your bio. We touched on all the things you did from a PR perspective. What made you get off the sidelines and seeing everyone else live out their dreams, from T.D. Jakes to J.K. Rowling? Like, how did you decide, you know what, I'm getting off the sidelines, I'm going to be a writer, and not getting your own way?
I went into it knowing that I wanted to be a writer. So my first job out of college was at Scholastic Books. And at that time, I started. Y'all remember Scholastic Books?
Listen.
Book fair was lit, boy. I thought I was rich, man. I had a little nice eraser.
I mean, right. Erase on the sticker. I'm sure.
My mama came in with my little dollars.
Listen,
I was like, yeah, boy.
So thank you for your work. Thank you.
Yeah, so that was my first job, but I went into it, you know, I was a theater major in college. I was telling you that. I was a theater major in college, but halfway through college, I switched to communications, and I realized that I wanted to write. I was going to poetry readings and, you know, back to snapping. I was at the New Weekend Cafe, and, you know, you couldn't tell me nothing. I was up on stage. Poetry was a marriage between theater and writing.
And is.
It is. And is, right. And so I went into publishing knowing that one day I wanted to be on the other side of the table. And so I was there to learn, so that when it was my turn, nobody could pull the wool over my eyes, because I knew the ins and outs of the business. So I was there for a purpose. But while I was working in publishing, I had the opportunity to meet different authors, and I used it. I picked their brains in the back of the cars going to the Today Show and things like that. And I was writing every day. So I would close my office door every day at 4 o'clock. And I would work on my novel, and then I would take it on the train with me, and I would edit it. And that was sort of my beginning for my first novel, Love in a Carry-On Bag. So I knew it. But what happened was, I assumed, because I had a background in publishing, getting published was going to be like 1, 2, 3 easy. And unfortunately, that's not my story. Or maybe fortunately, that is not my story. So when I finally got an agent, she took my first book to market, and I was turned down by 9 of the 10 editors who she sent it to. And we got to the 10th editor, and she called me and she said, hey, I got a bite from this editor. She was like, she has to talk to her boss over the weekend. I'm going to get back to you on Monday. And at this point, you know, when I first started my first book, I was pregnant with my first child. By this time, I had all 3 children. Like, that's how long it took for me to even get to that point, right? And so I just remember thinking, like, this is it, you know, begging God, just like anybody, somebody, please. And she called back and she said, I'm sorry. The editor said, no, let's wait 6 months and we'll give it another try. But at that point, as I said, I had been dragging this one book along for so many years that my husband convinced me, why don't we figure out how to do this ourselves? And so I took what I learned working in the publishing companies, and I married what he knew as an entrepreneur, and we put our savings into putting my first novel out. And we literally went up and down the East Coast. Any place where we could go to a book, you know, set up a table. I was here for the Black Baltimore Book Festival way back in the day.
Wow.
Right, so you remember how far back that is. I remember, you know, standing on cobblestone streets begging people to come and stop and hear what I had to say. So that was the beginning for me, you know, and, you know, it was hard, but I think it makes me the author that I am today, you know. When I'm having a conversation with my publicist or my editor, we're having a conversation like we're partners, you know, because I'm bringing something to the table. And so it was definitely a journey, but it's not one that I would trade.
I love that. Yes. No. So like, let's go into like today's time. Like, what is today's process like writing process? Like, you got, you know, maybe, I don't know if you got the idea similarly together for Yellow Wife and House of Eve, but like when you get the idea for a book, where does it go from there at this point? Like, what is that process?
Well, for Yellow Wife, like I said, I was not planning to write historical fiction. I literally took my family and some friends on the Richmond slave trail as a history lesson for the kids, right? And it was there that I learned about Mary Lumpkin, who Yellow Wife was based on. And I could feel the hairs on my arms standing up.
Same.
And something was like, you need to be paying attention. And so that was sort of the beginning of the transition for me. For Yellow Wife, I took about 6 months to research it because I thought historical fiction was a separate skill. Like, I knew how to write a book, but like, how do you write a book that took place 100 years before you were born, or more than that, right? So it took me a while to like realize, and actually Marita Golden is one of my writing mentors, and I remember calling her saying, you know, I'm writing this book, it's about slavery, and she said, Sadeqa, you're not writing a slave story. She said, you're writing a story about motherhood and about freedom and about love, and slavery is the backdrop. And that was what freed me to be able to tell the story in a way that it needed to be told. So that was that. And then with The House of Eve, actually, The House of Eve was probably the fastest book I wrote, which I can't still tell you how that happened. But it was the first book that I realized that I can't always write at home because my family's very distracting. And so
With love.
With
But
love.
I gave myself permission to go away for 7 days or 10 days and be immersed in the story. And I think that immersion is what helped the story come a little bit faster.
Did you feel at any point, I'm jumping in, sorry.
I know you are.
Did you feel at any point as if you were writing 2 books versus 1 with House of Eve?
Sort of. Because the way I wrote House of Eve was unlike any other book. So the book is broken into 4 parts, right? So I would focus on part 1, and I would write Ruby's part 1 from start to finish. And at the end of part 1, I would put her aside because I told you earlier, it needs to sort of bake, right? So I would write it and I would put it to side, put it in the oven. I would let Ruby bake a little bit, and then I would work on Eleanor's story. And I would do the same thing to the end of part 1. Then I would go back and look at it and then braid it together of where the points made sense. And then I did the same thing for part 2 and part 3 and part 4. So yes and no, separate but then together was how I wrote that book.
Did you always start with Ruby?
Always started with Ruby. The story was always Ruby. So when I, first saw her, Ruby sort of walked into my life, and I knew that I had a friend growing up in high school, and she lived with her great aunt. And I always remembered that she lived with her great aunt because her mother couldn't care for her. And again, something I'm just, you're always thinking as a writer, you're always remembering things. And so I knew that Ruby was very well endowed, that she, had a body shaped like a Coca-Cola bottle, right? But that she was very smart, but I knew that her mother didn't want her. And so where did that leave her? So I was always very drawn to her story because of my mother, my grandmother, and then this friend who I knew growing up. So I wrote her in first person because it felt like I was walking through the story with her, like up close and personal. Eleanor didn't come right away. The story was really supposed to be kind of like how I wrote Yellow Wife in Phoebe's voice all the way through. That was my thought. That's what I thought I was going to do for the House of Eve. But then I was sitting in my office one day, and I just felt this presence come over me. And it was strong, and it was angry, and it was desperate, and it was defiant. And it was Eleanor. And she's like, I need to have a baby. And I kept thinking like, oh my gosh, where did you come from? I'm like, okay. But I also believe that characters and stories, they choose you, and you only have a certain amount of time to say yes to it. Or otherwise, you're going to come to Charm City Books and pick the book, and you're like, why is Niccara's name on the idea that I came up with, So I'm like, Eleanor, hold on. Like, let me just figure this out. Don't go anywhere.
Wait a minute, Eleanor. You acting like your mama.
Right. But then that weekend, I watched The Pieces I Am by Toni Morrison. And that just gave me so much clarity. She said that growing up in Ohio, she did not know that black folks separated themselves by color until she stepped foot on Howard University's campus in the 1950s. Wow. And that's when I thought, aha, I think I understand what Eleanor's assignment is.
We have some Howard grads too in the building, so I'm looking over there in the corner. We love you.
We do.
So I would be remiss not to ask, what projects are you working on now? If you are at liberty to share to us.
So I am working on a new novel.
Somebody say yes.
I am. Okay, what can I say? I can tell y'all I got like 90 pages. So it's going to be, y'all going to have to give me a minute because I got to put it in the oven. I got to stir it. I got to put some seasoning in it. So it's going to take a little while. But it's a story. I discovered this story of a woman, and she has done something really monumental for children. And a lot people don't know who she is. And I think her story needs to be told, but I'm telling it in the Sadeqa way of telling it, right? So it's her story, but there is some other character story that's going to make a nice rich brew. It's my first time writing a book from 3 different POVs. And one is a man.
Oh.
One is a man. So he's who I'm working on. So on the train up here, I was spending some time with him, trying to figure some things out. But I'm super excited. Yeah, I'm super excited about it. I'm very scared. I hope that's a good thing, because I'm like, how in the world am I supposed to pull this off? Like, I feel in over my head. I feel overwhelmed by the responsibility of telling the story because I want to do it justice and I want to do it right. And I want the story. It takes place starts in 1948, and it goes maybe into the 60s. And so again, so many historical details that I have to take really good care of to make sure I do it right. I will tell you guys this, and I'm only telling y'all because y'all my Baltimore family. I just got back from Germany. Ooh. And I was there doing some research for the story. Okay. That's all I can tell you.
I love it. Okay.
That's it.
Well, I want to say you're going to do it justice because the proof is in the pudding.
We're sitting in front of it
and your
right
intention is good. Yeah. And if something doesn't scare you a little bit, I always say it ain't right.
Yeah.
It got scared just a little bit, just a little shake up, a little rub.
Exactly. I want to go back to like the hometown nods or whatever, because you're originally from Philly, which is represented in House of Eve. Then the Howard placement, of course, DC. You're living in Richmond, my hometown. What are some of, and then we're here in Baltimore, which is also a very big city. So I'm like wondering how did the historical like geography play a piece in all of this in terms of, for me specifically, I think about like the class play, like the just the segregation aspects of it. Like how did that, as you like, it's set in the 50s. Cool. What did that mean for Sadeqa, who's writing The House of Eve? What did that mean for your process?
So I would say, just to talk about Richmond for a second.
Forever.
I think if I had been born in Richmond, I would have never wrote Yellow Wife, because I think when you grow up in a place, you sort of walk by things and you don't notice it. You don't pay attention. It was the fact that I had only lived there for 9 months and I was searching to understand my surroundings a little bit better. And that was how I was able to tell the story of Yellow Wife. Growing up in Philly, Baltimore is very similar to Philadelphia.
That's our cousin.
My husband's family is from DC. So like this little quarter just means a lot to me. It all feels like home. It all feels like I think stories are also in our DNA. And so it feels like it's my stories to tell. Like I can feel it in my body. Yeah. If I can't feel it in my body, then, like I'm interested. I know for a minute I had been interested in, before American Dirt came out, I thought, wow, so much going on at the border with these children being separated, but I couldn't feel it in my body. Even though I'm interested, that's not, I don't understand, right? I'm not, it's not in my body, so I can't tell the story, whereas with Yellow Wife and an enslaved woman, I could feel my ancestors' DNA in my body. My ancestors are from Virginia, even though I grew up in Philly. They are, when I look at my family tree, they are from Virginia. And so I felt a kinship to Phoebe as I was telling her story. So that's also very important as I'm telling the story. And when I was over in Germany, that was one of the things I was researching, but I also needed to get that in my body. Like I needed to get the place and the people and the smells and the feeling, because if it's not in my body, I'm not going to give it. That's where the method acting comes in, right? Like,
yeah,
so
100%.
I need to like do that. I need to be the conduit so that it's sort of flowing through me. I think somebody told me early on that just think of yourself as the typist, right? The story wants to be born. It wants to be told. It's flowing through you. You are the conduit. Your job is just to type it and get it on page. Honor what you hear. Honor what you feel. So it needs to be inside of me.
Yeah. That's wow. Yeah, you hit, because I theater background stuff, but I do a lot more behind the whatever stuff. So playwriting is one of them. And I've been working on a play for like almost 13 years now, because it's set in Richmond. And it was inspired by Shockoe Bottom and the fact that was the largest slave market, and it's my home. 20-minute walk home, right? And I've been battling with it for years, and only recently, when I kind of stopped going back home so much, and now I only go back for pockets, certain things start to become clear to me now. And so like that's the interesting tap of how like you have to like kind of, I knew there was a story in there, and it certainly hasn't changed much form in the way I'm writing it, but like it's so much, I understand a bit more. Maybe that's maturity, maybe that's being an adult now or whatever, I don't know, some of that, sure, but you definitely just hit something that I feel like cracks a code that I've been like struggling with for a little bit with that particular piece, because like that is a big part of it. It's like, you do have to go, if you can, go to Richmond and just have the experience of the trade, of the walk. Like just go on that walk and then go to Shockoe Bottom. What it is today. Do it in that succession. Go on the walk and then go to Shockoe Bottom.
Y'all want to hear something real funny? I went to Richmond, right? Because I'm a bird. I had to find a hookah bar. Because I am a bird. I'm going to find find the hookah, okay? All right. Literally, I went to this place called Aces. I had crab legs because they had it for brunch, and my hookah on the side, and a mimosa this big. I had a wang dang doodle of a time in Richmond. I was hanging out fun. But listen to this. I'm down the street, and I'm like, oh, I need to go to the Devil's Half Acre, blah, 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 this, that, and that. I'm literally driving over, and I look over, and I said, I was just being a degenerate 2 blocks over, and I had no idea that this literally where they sent bad slaves to be broken and beaten was right there. And I felt it. I said, I need some sage or something because I need like God to protect me. But you felt it like literally once you get off the train, you see it. It's right there. It's right there.
It's right there at the train.
In your face. And it's crazy. You're just walking past this all the time. People coming on and off trains and they're just right there. It's just crazy. So in the email we sent you guys, we told you guys to stay curious and come curious. So this is where we open it up for Q&A.
Absolutely.
So don't all jump in once, but go ahead and raise your hand and we'll go ahead and call on you. You are ready, girl. You were ready right there. You like, listen, go ahead. Introduce yourself too, please.
So my name is Kalia Bell. I am the CEO of the Bell brand.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, you are the first book that is a non-self-help book that I read in a decade.
Wow.
Wow.
Yep. And I read your book, and I'm with my sisters. We're in the book club. And it just so happened, our meeting is on Friday. And I went to go look to send you an email to tell you how amazing this book was. And I saw that you were here. That is why I'm here. So my question was to you, when we do this movie, who do we have as the character? This book was everything. I felt every emotion. I felt everything that you were trying to put in the book. You put impact in my life. I was a teen mom. I didn't have the same story. I was blessed. I had a wonderful upbringing with my child. But now I want to help other young women. Now I have to help other young women. You opened something, a charge within me. It is my responsibility to find these homes to help young women so they don't end up in no harm. So now when you write the movie, when we do the movie, who are we playing in the movie? Thank you.
Okay, so let's amend it just a teeny bit because I feel like I'd rather have a series.
Yes.
That's too quick. That's just too fast. It's gonna be an hour and 40 minutes.
Right. We love that.
Let's have a 3-season, 4-season series. So let's do that. Let's goose that up.
Yes. A season for each part.
Yes. Oh, so 4 seasons. Okay, so 4 seasons. Thank you for that amendment.
So right, please.
So I hate to say it. I can't see Ruby or Eleanor. I think I can see Rose. You know, that's easy. Jasmine Guy or Lynn Whitfield. That's sort of easy. You know, that's sort of easy. And even William's dad, what's his name? Light skin with the straight hair, Esposito.
Giancarlo. Yeah. I'm with that.
You know,
Absolutely.
that's easy.
Oh,
but
Anthony Fox.
the other characters, I'm not so sure, but I'm definitely open. I would say this, I would love to work with Sanaa Lathan in any way. She is just she is my shero. So, but I'm definitely open to that 4-season series.
Thank you so much.
Who else?
There's a question? Or?
Hi, my name is Gail. I'm from Montgomery County, still Maryland. I'm here with my aunt. And we actually listened to the book, so a couple quick things. One, I hadn't found a great author that I loved since J. California Cooper.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you are my new J. California Cooper. Thank you. I wanted to know, I love the ending because it was an uplifting, it was a happy ending. And so was that intentional? Because this book, as we were talking, could have gone down that really sad and hurtful and sorrowful way. But everybody in the end, it ended well, even with Ruby, and I love that. I haven't read it, I'm not going to share with you. That was so shocking, and so perfect.
Yeah.
I cried.
Yeah, it was intentional. I think when I was writing Yellow Wife, my agent went through and she's like, girl, this is a little dark. Like, you're going to have to pull a little bit of... She's like, you're such a happy person and this is dark. So you need to pull just a little bit of that darkness out. So I learned that when I was writing Yellow Wife. Every book is a learning experience for me. So for The House of Eve, I knew that we had to have, and also too, Yellow Wife came out during the social uprising, during 2020, COVID, and all the things we'd gone through. I knew that this book had to have a bit more joy. Even though I'm dealing with hard subjects, it needed to have some joy. And I love love, right? You know, love. You want that love aspect too. Yes. And thank you for the comparison. I love J. California Cooper. When I was writing Yellow Wife, I was thinking a lot about family. That was one of my favorite books of hers. I still have my copy.
I love it.
We saw someone raise their
Over
hand.
here.
Go ahead.
Hi.
So my name is Kadira. I'm here with half of my book club.
Woo! Come on, book club.
Book club love.
And I actually chose your book. So I hosted us that month. So we go and we talk about the book, right? And we have all these questions. Then I get home and I'm like, wait, I have one more question. So I had to text the ladies then. My question was, what was the purpose of the handyman?
Oh.
His whole character, why
Yeah.
was he there? So
He was a distraction.
from
He was a distraction. He was also Rose having her hands all up in their
Yeah,
business
that's
and telling
right.
them what to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And he was also, think about COVID. You didn't have a lot of visitors, right? And so I needed somebody to see her in a way where it didn't compromise the story.
Right.
And so that was his role.
I liked it.
Bernie. I almost
Yeah,
forgot
me
his
too.
name, Bernie. Yeah.
I was like,
Bernie.
Will, cuff your chick. And just giving, I don't know. He was giving that, I'll fix it.
Also, too, I thought Bernie probably would have reminded Eleanor of her father. Because he was a, hand guy. He worked in a factory and that sort of thing. And where William's family is all nice, smooth hands, doctors, this, that, and the other. He would have been a comfort to her because he might have reminded her of her father and men who she, grew up with. Those were all the reasons. Mm-hmm.
Any more questions out there? Oh.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Melly Thomas. I'm originally from Baltimore, but actually went to grad school. I went to Howard.
Oh.
So,
Yes.
That was a shot at you.
I hope I did age you a service. I hope I did. I hope I did it as solid. I
also went to
tried.
grad school, Virginia Union.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, boom.
Oh,
There you go.
God, all right. Yeah.
So I'm actually in conversation with a publisher to do nonfiction, right? And so I guess my attention is I'm also a storyteller. So I wanted to know
And a
first, what's
pastor.
your philosophy of storytelling, and then how would you relate your philosophy of storytelling to nonfiction writing?
So my philosophy feels very structured. I would just say my mission as a storyteller and as a writer, and right now specifically while I'm in the realm of historical fiction, is to shine a light in dark spaces and bring those stories to the forefront, to give a voice to those who did not have a voice. Right now that feels like my mission and my purpose as a writer. I don't write nonfiction just because I'm a little bit afraid. I'm afraid of being that vulnerable. Like if I wrote a memoir and I had to say, this happened to Sadeqa, this is a lot scarier for me than this happened to Ruby or this happened to Eleanor. I could hide behind fiction and be as honest and I still heal. I still get the healing, but I don't get the scary part of being so revealed. So maybe I'll get over it, right? This I'm telling y'all this because maybe I need to at some point work through that. And I don't even know if my memoir is that interesting, but maybe it is. But so I'm more focused on fiction right now.
Gotcha.
My name's Sasha. I'm from Baltimore. Like we said, we started a book club after reading The Yellow Wife. This is the I love that book, as well as The House of Eve. I'm actually, what is the book I'm reading? Take My Hand.
Oh yeah, by
I'm reading that, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, oh my goodness,
Ooh,
but I
that
love
one.
the way
Yeah.
you went through the book and how you showed, like, even though Ruby's mother wasn't like, really didn't want her, you could still, I could really relate because I know so many people that run into that situation where they're like, they're still looking for that acceptance, and like, even though she like treated her however, she still went and stood outside her house and went to see her, and it's just like, that is what really touched home, because I know so many people that have kind of estranged relationships with their family, but they still want that relationship, and it kind of makes you kind of think like, why are you like that? Like, you still want that approval from your mother, and it's just going through the book. It just really, it was really good the way you explained it. So, I don't
You know what I was thinking? No, I was thinking about that because I thought a lot about that, and I feel like, and this is going to sound a little harsh, but even children, like if your mom is on crack, right? Like, you still love your mom. You still want your mom. You want to fix her. You want to, like, you want, like, and that's what I was thinking of as I was writing the story. Like, regardless of the situation, most people, until you get so much hatred inside of you that you can then be like, you know, but it takes a while to get to that point, you know, and Ruby was so young that we could see, you know, her still wanting that. Yeah,
that hurt a lot. Anybody else?
So, hi, I'm Erica. I live in Baltimore, but originally from Atlanta.
Welcome.
Well, people are claiming me now. It's been about 13, 14 years.
Oh, no, you're a Baltimore at that point, girl. Get her a Lamar Jackson jersey.
But earlier you spoke about, you know, the process with your first book and, you know, going to different fairs and selling your book and things like that. And I think about the times when I may see people, you know, maybe at the mall or, you know, in different places selling the book. Can you tell a little bit more in detail about what that process looked like? So as a consumer, like, you know, we can, you know, understand more of what their process is and maybe be a better consumer or better supporter to those who are in those same shoes.
That's a really good question. So I can sort of only speak to my experience as a independently published or self-published author. For me, I always, because I had the publishing background, I always thought, and it's so funny that I'm published by Simon & Schuster because that was my benchmark. You know, we you know how we manifest, right?
Yes, we manifest queens over here.
That was my benchmark. I always said, with Love in a Carry-On Bag, I didn't want you to look at my book. Our company is called 12th Street Press, and look at a Simon & Schuster book and say, that's the self-published book. I wanted them to be able to stand side by side, and you felt like you were getting something quality. So I put a lot into the packaging and the paper texture and the typesetting and the printing and all of that. And then, you know, just trying to get my name out there. Like I said, you know, any book festival where you could pay, back then it was like $75 for a table. And we had a Nissan Armada. We got big retractables with Love in a Carry-On Bag on it. I had my kids out there in T-shirts, Love in a Carry-On Bag, standing there like hustling at the Harlem Book Festival, trying to get people to come to my table. For me, being a good salesperson was just as important as having a good product. And even now, right, when I go to events and I see people who are self-published, if they're sitting behind the table on their phone, I keep walking. You know, it could be a great book, but you're not doing anything to pull me in. But if they're like, sister, can I talk to you for a minute? Come here, let me tell you about my book. You give me a big smile, I'm going to pay the $10. Whether I read the book or not, I'm going to do it, you know? So I think the packaging of it, but also the hustle, right? You can feel in their spirit if they're like, this is my life's work. I notice what I want to do, then those are the ones that I'm definitely gravitating towards.
Someone stood up in the back. There we go.
Hello, my name's Nicole, and I'm from Bullseye Mega Girl Readers Book Club. They all shy tonight. Well, I wanted to say one thank you publicly for coming to Baltimore. We had just got transitioned to new leadership under these two members, and so we reached out to see if you can join us virtually, and you couldn't, and so you're here today, so we double blessed.
Oh!
And congratulations and everything you're doing. And as a book club, many of us are here to support our authors. And right now, with everything going on in the world, banning books, etc., what else could we do to help support local authors, writers like yourself, to become successful?
The biggest thing that you can do to help writers is to pre-order your books. Pre-order makes such a difference. And I'm going to tell you, so the House of Eve spent 2 weeks on the New York Times bestsellers list. But if it was not for people pre-ordering my book and buying it first week, I wouldn't have made it. So that first week, it's just like a movie, right? You know when a movie comes out, you got to be there because those sales numbers tell the publishing house whether they want to publish you again. I mean, it means a lot. They're looking at everything. It's called a profit and loss. Like even with the book that I'm writing now, before my editor made an offer, or she went and looked at how was Sadeqa selling before? You know, let's look at what did Yellow Wife do? What did the House of Eve do? And then she comes and says, okay, this is what I think. So those first week of sales is everything. So if you have a favorite author and she's putting it up on, or he's putting it up on Instagram, pre-order my book. I know a lot of times bookstores will do discounts and that sort of thing. Like that's the best way that you can support us because, you know, as a Black author, there are not a lot of us on the New York Times bestsellers list. I mean, I think when the House of Eve made the list, Robert Jones Jr., he wrote The Prophet. He said, I think you are the first Black female who has been on the list in 13 months or 18 months. And the New York Times bestsellers list comes out every week. So it is really hard for us to get on the list. But when you get on the list, it changes your life. Like you said, it puts respect on your name, right? So now I may not, well, let me not say that. I'm going to make it again.
You are.
I'm going to make it again.
Respect on your name.
Put some respect on your name.
But it's almost like once you get that doctorate degree, you always Dr. Johnson. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what you do. So it's that same thing. And for a lot of my colleagues, that is the goal because they want that respect on their name. So when you see an author who you like and you appreciate, pre-order, buy the book the first week of sales. Tell your friends, you know, and I'm all about a sharing, but don't share with your book club. Like everybody go get their own copy. You know what I mean? I love the library. I grew up going to the library, but now I got a couple extra pennies. I'm going to go buy the book. So, yes.
And definitely shop local, like independent as well. That definitely helps us be able to bring people like Sadeqa into the community so that we can do this type of stuff for you, you know? So no to Amazon, no to Barnes and Noble. I said it. Okay, cool.
We'll do 15% off to book club.
Yes,
exactly.
we do.
Oh yeah, we have book clubs and stuff like that all as well. Yes, exactly. We'll take one more question. Send it in the back there. How about there?
Hi.
Hello.
We connected a couple of times on my Bookstagram, so I just wanted to, like, similar to her, thank you for, first of all, coming to Baltimore. I'm from New Jersey, but Baltimore.
Jersey girl. I am an honorary Jersey girl. I lived there for 17 years.
But I'm also a writer, so I wanted to ask, how do you put so much oomph and like vigor in even the most difficult of scenes? Two scenes that really come to mind are when, of course, I hope everybody read the book, but when, you know, Eleanor and
Or just give a taste, and I'll know what you're talking about.
Yeah, when Eleanor and Ruby reached
Okay.
the journey,
Uh-huh.
and then also in Yellow Wife, when we got to see the prison cell,
Yeah.
those are like my favorite scenes. It really cemented you as like one of my favorite authors, just because of all the description, and I felt like the scene was very around. So how do you commit to that much description and life within the pages?
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you. How do I do that? I don't know. Okay. So that's why I said, I know y'all want another book, but y'all want to give a system moment. Because I really need to let it cook. I am never going to be a book a year author. And, there are some book a year authors who write great books, but I really love, I'm not a poet, but I love the poetry of writing. I love the words. I love, when you read a book, and Jasmine Ward is one of those authors that I'll read a sentence and I got to take a minute. Wait? What? I got to put it down for a second, right?
Okay, trigger warning.
There's some writers who can tell a good story, but the craft is just okay. And then there's some writers that can tell a good story and the craft makes you, like, you just remember the scene, you remember the words. That's how I always wanted to write. And so I can work on a paragraph, I'm not even kidding, for like 3 or 4 hours, like one paragraph, because it has to make my soul sing before I move on. And so I think that probably is what you feel. But let me say this about being a writer. So when I first started off writing, I always had some sort of a schedule. So when I worked in publishing, my schedule was I wrote on the train, I wrote that hour at work, I wrote on the train. On Saturday, my husband was at Rutgers, so that was 3 hours. He was out of the house, I wrote those 3 hours. But I was consistent. And so one of the things that he says about me all the time is that I'm one of the most dedicated writers that he knows, because I keep showing up, even when it's like, some days it is bad. Some days I'm like, that's what I said, I feel in over my head right now in this story I'm writing, and some days it's like, what the heck? But I'm like, well, let me just try it again tomorrow. And then tomorrow's not as bad as it was. Well, let me just try it. And then by the end of the week, I'm like, oh, okay, Sadeqa, you got it. So I think my best advice to any writers in the room is, it is not a destination. Writing is a journey. It's not always going to feel good. It's not always going to be pleasurable. But if you stay with it, and you need the momentum. So like right now, I'm a little off my momentum because I've been traveling. So today was kind of my first day back, and I wrote on the train. So it's like, okay, let me just get my feet wet. But tomorrow morning, before I leave, I already wrote down, Sadeqa, your writing time tomorrow is 7:30 to 10:30. I made an appointment with myself. So I'm getting up early, I'm going to get my coffee, and I'll be somewhere in that hotel from 7:30 to 10:30 because I said I was going to do it. So, like, you got to make an appointment for yourself as a writer the same way you would do something else. It can't be when I get to it. It has to be specific.
Ooh, that's
like
lesson
the
right
Grinch.
there.
I'm having dinner with myself again. I can't cancel again.
Can't cancel that. No, got to do it.
So before we close, any final words for everyone to leave with tonight?
I would say, just for... I know that there are writers, I know that there are entrepreneurs, I know that there are people in the room that feel like they're being called to do something. And that calling probably feels bigger than you think that you can handle. And I want to say that if you're being called to do it, God dropped that inside of you. And even though it's scary, even though you think you can't do it, if I had not listened to that calling and I had missed it, or if I was afraid to keep going at it, like my first book took over 10 years, right? I wouldn't be standing here today. So don't be afraid. Trust yourself. Give yourself permission to try it. And if you fail greatly, right? Don't die with that thing inside of you, that story, that business, that idea, whatever that is saying, that mission, that ministry, go for it.
Yep. Absolutely. No, that's like my mom, who's Reverend also, she would always say, God doesn't call the equipped, he fully equips the called. So like, if you've been called, go for it. So with that, everybody, let's one more applause for Sadeqa Johnson, please. Thank y'all so much. We are on Instagram. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Pod. We're on Podbean. We're wherever you listen to your podcast. You'll be able to listen, replay this, share this with everybody. Follow us at But Make It Books Pod. You can also follow Sadeqa at Sadeqa Says.
Yes, pull your phones out because I'm trying to get to 10,000 followers, okay?
Yes,
Follow me on Instagram. And before y'all get up, I want to take a picture of y'all, okay?
Yes,
and
please.
before we close, and as we always do, no, Sadeqa, you're back.
Don't leave. Sorry, I want to get my phone, okay?
And as we always close, I'm one of your hosts, Niccara.
And I'm Brandon.
And don't forget, keep healing bookishly, y'all.
Thank y'all so much. Peace.
I love that.